Hello everyone, with convention season hitting us now, I thought I'd give you some tips to make the conventions that bit nicer, that bit more pleasant, and hopefully that bit more successful when you actually go. So these are my top tips for any convention, be that UK Games Expo, Essen Spiel, Gen Con, or any of the others. These are probably focused on the larger ones, but a lot of them will work for smaller conventions too. So, first off, food and drink. Now, I would very much recommend taking a water bottle to one of these locations. You can often have little areas where you can fill them back up. It also means you're going to stay hydrated because you're going to want to be in that games hall, in the convention halls for the maximum amount of time. You don't want to be sort of feeling a little under the weather from lack of water, basically. And food, in convention halls, there's always going to be that bit of a markup. You are a captive audience. One thing that we normally do when we go to Essen is we go to one of the local supermarkets and we will buy our sort of our lunch stuff, sandwich bits, make up a sandwich and take that in with us to go. Two reasons for this. A, it's a lot cheaper, but B, certainly at actual lunchtime, there's always long queues for the different stands. Now, if you're going somewhere for the first time or just want to try one of those local things for lunch, go for it. There's no problem with that. Just know that it does cost you game time, and if you're only there for a certain amount of time, you've got to factor that in. Next up, I've said pick 5 games that are your must-see. Now, this is important because when you're going to a convention, there are certainly UK Games Expo or certainly Essen, there are hundreds of games on show. Now, this can be a little bit overwhelming, and when you're wandering around, you're seeing bits left, right, and center. You're wanting to stop and look at everything. But if you have 5 games that you're going into the convention wanting to see, then you won't come out of it sort of disappointed. It leaves you that time to still stop and look at anything else that you want to, but you're not making a list of 50 games you need to see. Just pick your top 5 and tick those off, which leads nicely into my next one of planning a route. Now, this could be planning a route to the convention centre, but I actually mean around it. Now, some of the conventions get exceedingly busy. Now, in the last few years, they've had wider aisles and stuff like that, but it can be a little, sometimes awkward to weave your way through sort of the crowds on some of the busier rows of vendors, rows of stalls. So try to make sure that you're sort of going in a logical route around the convention centre. Now, they always release maps that you can use and stuff like that. So if you know I need to go to this stall at not this time, but this stall, then you can plot sort of a route, not to avoid some of that traffic, but making sure you're not going from one to the other and back and back. Do it in a logical order because it can save you a lot of time and a lot of hassle pushing through potentially a lot of sweaty people. Next up is bad Wi-Fi. Now, some of the locations will offer Wi-Fi, even if your phone has 4 or 5G. It's going to be slow. Like when you go to a football game or something like that, there's a lot of people in one area, which means your reception's not always the best. Now, why am I mentioning this? 2 things. If you're trying to pick up a game, look up the prices ahead of time, because then you're not stuck there when you've seen something at one of the stalls thinking, oh, I do want to buy that, trying to quickly, and it not load very quickly, scroll through a couple of like Chaos Cards or Amazon or whatever you use to buy online. You're not trying to scroll through to see what their prices are and really not loading, and then you're maybe making a bad decision. So if you know you're wanting to pick up a certain couple of games, or you might pick up a couple of games, just do your shopping round first so you know what price you'd be happy with. The other option, the other problem with the Wi-Fi is that a lot of tickets are e-tickets these days. just try and make sure you've got that downloaded as a PDF or screenshot or something, so you don't have to worry about that at the door. Next, bring and buy / math trades. Now, I've not done too much of this. I've perused the bring and buys, and I've also been part of 1 or 2 trades at different conventions. Now, my advice for these is probably start small, like I have, but with the UK Games Expo, like, there is a dedicated bring and buy area. Go and have a look on the website well ahead of time if you're thinking of bringing, but for the buying, there's normally a decent sized queue. You probably do want to get there as early in the show as possible to have a look around the maximum amount of stuff. Obviously, so will everyone else, so you'll have to commit that time if you want to. The way around that is the opportunity of math trades, where effectively on something like Board Game Geek, there's normally a post and you list up what game you'll be willing to bring with you to be part of the trade system. Long story short, the way those trade works, it's not normally I bring this game and you give me money, or I swap this game for your game. It's normally in like a round robin. I'm giving this game to you and getting that game from you. You're then swapping with other people and everyone is happy. It's not normally a direct swap. Just make sure you're understanding quite what you're getting into. But there's 2 different options at conventions normally. Swapping with people that are as part of that sort of swap system, or for money, or that sort of dedicated bring and buy. Know what you're going to do, because one involves queuing, the other one maybe involves finding and locating a person. If you're doing that, say we will meet at like near this stall or in this area of the play area and stuff like that, and make sure you have their like phone number so you can WhatsApp them. The next one on the list is table waiting. Now, it feels a little bit rude to sort of hover around a table sometimes waiting for someone to finish. What you can do to get around this is some of the stands will have sort of a waiting list, and they'll say, okay, this game's going to finish at 1, come back then and the table is yours. It's not too common. What's more common is you can ask the demoers, how far through the game are they? How long have we got? And sometimes there's 2 or 3 tables and they'll say, they're finishing up over here, we'll be able to get you on over there. They've only just started, and you can go and, while you're waiting then, see a couple of the different elements of the game being played out. It worked quite well for like Azul or something, where you can actually just look and see how far roughly through the game they are. But some games, it's not always entirely obvious. So just ask the demo staff if one of them is available. They'll normally give you a little bit of a heads up and can maybe say, well, if you wait 5-10 minutes, you'll be on, or they've just started, it's going to be half an hour, and you can decide then whether you want to move on or you want to stand, wait and watch on. Just maybe let them know that you are waiting. Days to go. Now, days to go is an important choice for everyone. Now, there is obviously the issues with if it's a days of the week, annual leave and all that sort of stuff. Typically though, if you can go on the weekdays of a convention, it's normally not as busy. It's pretty obvious to say that, but it does make certainly maybe your first time or just any time that bit more pleasant, because you're not going to be fighting through as many crowds. It's also going to be slightly easier to get onto games because there won't be as much wait. Now, I'm not saying there won't be any. For instance, this year, 2022, UK Games Expo is actually on a bank holiday on the Friday, so expect that to be pretty busy as well as the rest of the days. The middle day on a 3-day convention, it's like normally the Saturday, is by far the busiest. Sunday, there is a weird sort of split. Sometimes it's super busy, certainly in the morning hours, and then it just starts to edge off as the afternoon gets there, when people are starting to maybe travel home and stuff before the end of the weekend. So you can also get in some slots right at the end to actually play games, but be prepared for some stands to be slowly wrapping up and packing away some demo copies. If you're purchasing stuff, obviously the sort of earlier in the convention you can get there, the better. Some stands will sell out of certain games. They will also sometimes have daily allocations. So just because you're not there on the Friday doesn't mean there's not a Saturday allocation of a certain game. Not all publishers will do that though, and not all stands will adhere to that. So if you really want to buy a brand new game, you need to be there as early in the convention as you can get, and you'll even see people sprinting when the doors open to specific stands because that's the hyped game that they really want to get their hands on, just as a heads up. The next point is stay local. Now, this is an ish. For example, when I stayed in Essen, I've stayed in a couple of locations. One is right near the train station, which has a very nice train route straight to the convention centre. The other time is almost as far again the other side of Essen. As long as you've got some kind of public transport system though, and you can look ahead and see where that is and times and stuff. For instance, in Essen, we were that far away, but we hopped on like a tram that got us to the train station, that got us down, and it was a really short, easy, and not very far walking route to the convention centre, so it worked fine. If we did have to walk like 20 minutes though, just think, at the end of the day, you will have walked around the convention centre and been on your feet for a lot of time. You might be carrying heavy games. If you're driving and stuff, these are sort of mute points, but just think about exactly where you're staying and that public transport just to get you somewhere. You don't necessarily have to stay right next to the convention centre. In fact, for Essen, I wouldn't recommend it because the more centre of the town with just that train ride in the morning, that's absolutely fine. And it means you're better located for sort of the restaurants in the evening. Next up, we have register for events. Now, certain events that you want to take part in, they are going to be ticketed, and just look ahead of time because some of these do have limited seats. Some of the talks or shows and stuff, they won't have limited tickets. They might be, however, at different times. Sometimes they are almost running, overlapping when the end of like the convention hours happen. So just check ahead of time and make sure you're not going to miss out thinking, oh, I'll go to that, but haven't got the ticket. And just as a little bonus one, someone said online about taking a battery pack. I don't think it's 100% necessary unless you're not sure where you're going to be able to like charge your phone overnight. As long as you can, that's fine. But, you know, it's always better just to play it safe. So a battery pack, if it's not too heavy, could be something to throw in your bag. Let us know in the comment section below your favourite tip for a convention though. It'd be really interesting to hear some more. And, well, enjoy convention season.